covered in patches of red, irritated skin. His normally groomed golden hair was a mess, stringy with patches of it stuck to his head. He turned toward me. His eyes were red, with dark circles underneath. He didn't seem to be in any better condition than I was. My gaze headed down his body, and then I realized I was staring at his groin. Then he smiled in a way that made him look crazy. "You awake now? We've got to go." I blinked, shaking my head to stop staring. Every part of me itched, head to toe. I lifted my arm to my nose, smelling my skin. Salt and dirt. Ew. "We don't have time for a shower," he murmured. "Get dressed." "Why?" I asked. "We have to get back on the ship." The last couple of days began to sink in. We'd spent less than a day aboard a ship called Lucienda. Ethan Murdoch had asked us to lead a team to find out who'd stashed over $2 billion his father had tucked away in secret accounts. He assumed other CEOs among his companies were part of the conspiracy. Our goals were to find out the truth, find the money, and settle things as quietly as possible. After only our first day, Blake and I had been thrown overboard. We weren't exactly sure who had done it. There were a lot of possibilities. Blake even suspected mutiny among my team. I couldn't blame Blake for thinking that. The Academy guys, the people I'd brought on board to help, weren't happy he was around. And then there was how complicated things had gotten between the guys and me. I'd been flirting with all of them. I hadn't been honest with them about what was going on, avoiding their questions about commitments and exclusivity. Guilt sank in the more I thought about my actions. They had all been seeking a romantic relationship with me, and I'd let them believe I was interested. And I was, but in reality, I found it too difficult to choose between them. They had all been criminals in their former lives. Had one of them been angry enough to throw me overboard? Had they decided I wasn't worth the trouble? I tried to ignore that thought, although I couldn't dismiss any of the guys entirely for doing this. Axel hadn't wanted me on board in the first place. Raven had seemed okay with things, but could he have been holding back? Brandon had a temper, and had even attacked Blake before. And Marc, I had been intimate with him before he found out about the others. I couldn't blame him if he was angry. Blake walked over to me, bending forward to look me straight in the eyes. "You okay? Can you get up?" And then last night on the beach, Blake and I had had sex. My thighs were a bit raw from the sand, and I was sure there was more sand in parts of me that I needed to rinse out at some point. On top of that, my entire body was sore from swimming, and from walking a few miles to get to a place where we could call for help. I pushed him in the shoulder to get him to back off. I was sore, but I didn't need help. I flung the blanket away from my naked chest. My breasts were covered in crusted sand, and I started to flake some of it off. "I know it itches," Blake said, watching me. He reached over, touching my side, sliding his hand down and brushing away a clump of sand there. "But we need to hurry. I want to rinse off too, but maybe we should wait until we get on the boat." "That would be better," said a male voice by the door. My whole body snapped awake, going rigid in shock. I covered my breasts and looked over my shoulder to check who was at the door. It was only open a crack, but there was clearly a figure standing just outside. "If you two want to make it to the boat, we'll have to be quick." "Who?" I started to ask, thinking I recognized the voice, and struggling to recall if I knew him. There were blank spaces in my memory. I remembered the time in the water after being pushed off the boat, swimming to shore and barely making it, being on the beach, making love to Blake, walking through the woods, waiting for someone to pick us up, and then nothing. I thought I remembered another voice, this man's, but assumed it had been a dream. But then how did we get here? "I'm Liam," said the man. "Corey sent me. I'm here to help. I drove you here."